Hello everybody, and welcome to AnthroView. Today we'll be presenting the last video in our Critical Lens series, Anthropology for Tabletop Game Designers. And in this video, I'm going to be talking to you about community building. Now, community building is a process that often gets taken for granted. And part of the reason for that is that it seems like it's just a natural process that plays out when we interact with people. And to some degree, that's what it is. But when you examine it from an anthropological point of view, you start to uncover some of the subtle complexities and the important features of building a community. So in this video, I'm going to talk about things like communities of practice and reciprocity that kind of lend insight into the way that community building can help game designers build a stronger community, can help individuals become better designers, and that makes the game design community better for everyone involved. Now, some of the things I talk about in this video might be things that you're already doing, or some of it might seem a little overly theoretical, but understanding the reason why we carry out different practices, or why it's important to do things like going to playtesting events and talking with other people about design and games in general helps us to understand how we can participate and build a stronger game design community for everybody involved in the process, and in turn, how those behaviors make us better designers. So that's why I decided to end the series using this as kind of the capstone of all the other lessons that I've hopefully helped you pick up along the way. So I hope you enjoy this video. Let's get to it. In previous videos, I've talked about how to collect data from playtesters and the importance of fully engaging with the design process. But many of the topics in this series so far have been predicated on the idea that you are already part of a tabletop game design community. And if you're already reading about design, talking about design, and designing and playtesting games, then congratulations, you're already part of the game design community. But there's more to community building and participation than that. Remember, tabletop games are all about interactions. And that means design is more than just the brain work you do when creating cards and mechanics. It's also about the people who play your designs, how they play and interact, and how you can benefit from playing and interacting with them. When I designed this project, one of the core concepts I was using to build my research design was the idea of communities of practice. This concept was developed by Jean Lav and Etienne Wenger to explore the ways that we learn skills and information from our colleagues. A community of practice is a group of people who work together, share ideas and values, and who benefit from interactions with various members of the group, and by extension, each member provides benefits to that group through those interactions. In his aptly titled book, Communities of Practice, Wenger wrote that the primary focus of this theory is on learning as social participation, going on to say, social participation shapes not only what we do, but also who we are and how we interpret what we do. Simply put, it's a way of learning in which we pick up skills and knowledge through our interactions with others. Now, I don't want to bog you down with a lot of theoretical discussion here, but there are some important ideas to lay out that will help you understand how this concept of communities of practice can benefit your design practice. Wenger identified 4 components of this social theory of learning: meaning, practice, community, and identity. Those 4 concepts illustrate how we learn many things in life, especially since humans are social creatures. Think of it this way. Meaning is how we experience learning. Practice is what we do while learning. Community is how we learn from each other, and identity is how what we learn has the potential to change us. This is a very broad overview, and a closer reading on Wenger's book could benefit anyone interested in social learning, but I'll try to simplify these concepts using my own experiences in game design. At the outset of this project, my identity included being an anthropologist and a tabletop game player, among other things. And my early design practice included reading rulebooks and making house rules for my D&D campaigns, and playing tabletop games, of course. My community was my friends who I gamed with, and with whom I occasionally discussed ideas for our own game designs. Wenger identifies meaning for communities of practice as the ways that a practice fits into our everyday lives. Games' meaning for me was that they were a source of fun and camaraderie during a somewhat tumultuous upbringing. They were an escape, to some degree, but also served as an effective way to connect with friends. I especially loved co-op action games, and that has persisted through today into my tabletop gaming hobby. These categories evolved as I began to get interested in design and started participating in a community of practice. My identity started to incorporate my role as a graduate student and aspiring game designer. I added to my practice reading about design in books, learning about design from game studies and design classes at my university, and making my own prototypes. As I began to attend game design meetups, my community expanded to include other designers, ones I met at those events, as well as those who write about design online and in books. And as far as meaning, I started to incorporate a view that games were something more than just components and rules. They are social experiences, intricate systems of interaction, and an interest that continues to occupy much of my mental bandwidth. This is just a long way of saying that my interest in tabletop game design situated me firmly into a community of practice. So that was a lot of theoretical stuff, and understanding how we learn can be a useful way to think deeply about topics, but you're here for the practical stuff, right? So let's talk about applying this to your practice. I can't stress enough that the best thing you can do to be a better designer is to participate in an active community of players and other designers. If you're new to design, you should waste no time in finding people to talk to about games and design and who will play your prototypes. Start by finding a venue where people are playing games. A local game store or cafe, a public meetup, a convention, or a designer event. You can find these kinds of events online, or even better, if you know someone who is part of a gaming group, ask them to bring you along. This is a great way to introduce yourself to a new community of tabletop gamers. But even if you don't have anyone to introduce you, that's okay. Tabletop gamers are always looking for new players, and game designers are extremely friendly, supportive, and inviting people, and there are plenty of online resources where you can find people to talk about design and play prototypes with. Look around on meetup.com, Board Game Geek, Facebook groups, or similar websites where people connect and see who is doing design in your area. It might be intimidating at first, but if my experiences tell me anything, it's that designers are always enthusiastic about new people joining their community, and they love to share their design insights and play new prototypes from aspiring designers. Now, depending on where you live, finding playtesting communities might be more challenging, but if that is the case, I suggest asking around at your friendly local game store to see if anyone who works or shops at the store is interested in design. You can also look into tabletop gaming conventions and their websites. Most cons have some kind of design community presence, and you should be able to find some information about connecting with those groups on sites like Meetup or on Facebook groups. I suggest taking any chance you can get to attend a protospiel or tabletop prototype event. The people you meet could end up being your collaborators and friends in the future, and the feedback you get on your prototypes could lead to major innovations in your designs or your practice overall. Once you have a group to playtest with, it's time to implement those social science skills we covered in my earlier videos. If you haven't watched them yet, I suggest you check them out to pick up some data collection techniques and anthropological methods for examining behaviors and practices. Having a good eye for how people respond to experiences during play is helpful at all stages of prototyping and will serve you well in all your design endeavors. If you already have a prototype ready to go, definitely bring it to every event you attend, even if you don't know anyone there or aren't sure if other designers will even be there. It never hurts to offer gamers a new experience, and if you meet them, other designers will want to play your prototype, even if they don't know you yet. That has definitely been my experience in the design community. Designers are excited to see what others are making and to try out prototypes at any stage of development and from people at any level of expertise, and lots of tabletop gamers love to see a new game system, even if they aren't explicitly interested in design themselves. If you play and design games, chances are you've got a good sense of how mechanics and systems can work together, so don't be afraid to show off what you have. But even if you don't have a prototype ready to go, you should still go and play some other designers' games. It'll be a great opportunity to broaden your design practice, and you'll meet some people you'll want to stay connected with as you start to delve into the world of design. In other words, get out there and participate with some designers. Okay, so once you've been to some prototyping events, you're going to want to become more engaged with the design community. Just going to events and talking with other folks interested in tabletop gaming is great, but what does it really mean to be part of a community? And how can we increase our engagement and give back to other designers? Figuring that out is the next step to becoming a vital part of your community. In his GDC talk on community management, Sean Day 9 Plot argues that one of the best things you can do to help build a community is to contribute to it. I'll put a link to that video below, but there are some simple things you can do to put Plot's advice to work. Going to events and playtesting people's designs is contributing. Talking about design with newcomers and experienced designers is contributing. Interacting on message boards and online forums is contributing. And creating things that are helpful to other designers is contributing. The important thing to remember is that you are not participating just to reap the benefits of the goodwill you'll gain. You'll want to contribute to the community for the sake of contributing, not because you're expecting to be owed something in return. Plot emphasizes this when he says, "The currency of community is contribution." Contributing to a community is one of the best ways to build that community, and due to the principle of reciprocity, which I'll talk about more in a minute, a stronger community benefits all members. You can lead by example by offering to chat about games and by playing other designers' prototypes, but you aren't doing it just to benefit yourself. These are fringe benefits of contribution, not the reason for doing so. When I began this project, the whole point was to create something useful for designers. That's the point of these videos. I didn't study tabletop designers through an anthropological lens just to lock that knowledge up in a place where relatively few people could access it. I chose YouTube as a platform to distribute my findings so that anyone could explore them and hopefully learn from what I've done. Creating something like an app or video series where you use your own experiences, perspectives, and skills to inform other people in your community is a great way to contribute. You can create something practical for designers using your knowledge and resources. That's why my videos are about social science methods, because that's a topic I know about and I can share it with others. Not everyone has the time or resources to go out and study every subject that could be helpful to their design work, but a quick synthesis and actionable lessons can be tremendously helpful. If you can explain the probability of different dice rolling results or how to print cards and components at home in a short, concise way, that's an extremely useful resource for designers. Likewise, if you can create a basic app for tracking design changes or creating custom components for prototyping, I know plenty of designers who would benefit from it. Even tangentially related topics can be tremendously helpful. If you know a lot about a specific historical period, that can help designers looking to design historically accurate games, while knowledge of various sciences can help refine games with scientific themes. The main point to remember is that you know information and can do things that others would struggle with, and helping to simplify or teach those things to designers is a viable way for you to contribute to your design community. Ask your fellow designers what kinds of knowledge and resources they could benefit from, and see if you have the capacity to help fill those gaps. If you have technical writing expertise, offer to help edit rulebooks or to spell check cards. If you know about medieval weaponry, ask if someone designing a fantasy game wants advice for designing weapon mechanics. You could help in novel or practical ways, but remember that contributions to your community help to make everyone a better designer. Another helpful thing to remember is that every game design benefits from diverse perspectives and extensive playtesting. Playtesting with your fellow designers is a great way to get feedback, but it's also important to remember that anyone with an interest in games can provide valuable feedback on prototypes. And since prototyping events benefit from having plenty of potential testers, I strongly suggest that designers encourage friends who are not overtly interested in design to attend prototyping events to play prototypes. A number of the events I have participated in over the years are open to anyone, and some specifically look for non-designers to come, play, and give feedback on designs. There are plenty of reasons why this is a good idea, including growing the size of your community and having a large pool of potential testers with diverse opinions and experiences. Tabletop game design is a niche within an already niche hobby, and sometimes testing with only designers is difficult simply because not many designers might be available at the same time and place. But finding tabletop game players is a bit easier, and designers will appreciate getting as much feedback from as many people as they can on their designs. So encourage your friends who aren't designers, but who still love tabletop games, to attend events and offer their feedback. Doing so will widen the pool of potential testers in the community and strengthen your design community by including more voices of people who know and love games. And since these players could be potential buyers of your game in the future, getting feedback about what is working and what needs work while spreading the word about your game are great benefits. In anthropology, much has been written about reciprocity. It's a major concept that is far too expansive to cover in depth here, but we can work with a basic definition for our purposes. In brief, reciprocity is the idea that community members help each other with their skills, knowledge, and resources, and in turn, community members can count on help from others when they need it. This in turn produces a system where everyone is sharing knowledge, skills, and resources with everyone else, and therefore everyone gets taken care of. The game design and prototyping process is a great model for reciprocity. You go to a playtesting event to get people to try out your designs, but while you're there, you also test other people's games as thanks or just to try new games and give advice. And even when you don't have a prototype you are currently working on, you'll still want to go to events to be a tester for other designers' games, to talk with them, share techniques and experiences, and just hang out with people who share your interest in games and design. One way to really help out your fellow prototypers is to test their games with the same attention to detail as you use when you test your own designs. When you play someone's prototype, take notes, ask questions, and engage with the other players. The person who is running the playtest will appreciate your enthusiasm, and your notes will help you to give even better feedback on their designs. And this will likely mean that those other designers will be more open to taking a similarly deep approach to testing your designs and spending more time discussing games and design with you. Again, you should be contributing for the sake of contributing, because you will grow as a designer just through the process of helping others. Another thing you can do is to be willing to replay a prototype while the designer makes changes on the spot. This approach works well, especially for designers who are new to the process or who have new systems they're trying out, but it can be hard to find people willing to sit through the process of changing mechanics and rules on the fly. Just try to be adaptable and open to help by being a sounding board for your fellow designers. And you don't have to wait for the designer to ask you to do this. You can suggest the approach if you think you have ideas that they could benefit from. Just remember that in the end, the designer will have the final say on what works and what doesn't for their design. That brings us to the end of this series on anthropology for tabletop game designers. But that doesn't mean that the discussion has to end here. Go ahead and leave us a comment down in the section below if you have any other advice for either community building or any of the other topics we've covered in this series, or if you have questions about design, or if you just want to share your own experiences and thoughts about anything relating to tabletop game design. I'd also like to take this time to thank the community of Bay Area game designers that I interviewed for this project, that I play tested with, and that I got a chance to talk to and get to know, and who were so welcoming and so willing to help and to provide their insights into game design. If it wasn't for them, I literally couldn't have created this project, since everything that I presented to you has been built off of all of their participation in this project. If you're a tabletop game designer and you enjoyed this series, let us know in the comments, because we'd love to make more videos about design in the future. And if you're interested in anthropology in general, go ahead and subscribe to AnthroView so you'll get notified whenever we post new videos. But until next time, may knowledge guide you. Thanks for watching.